Hello everyone. And welcome back once again to another interesting video. In today's video we'll discuss top 20 most commonly asked Django interview questions along with their detailed answers that can help you prepare for a Django interview. So if you are ready, let's start today's video. Django is a popular Python web framework for building web applications quickly and efficiently. These questions cover a wide range of topics related to Django, including its architecture, ORM, views, templates, authentication, and more. Question 1. What is Django, and what are its key features? Answer: Django is a high-level Python web framework that encourages rapid development and clean, pragmatic design. Its key features include: batteries included. Django includes various built-in components like an ORM, authentication, admin interface, and more. Django ORM, a powerful object relational mapping or ORM that simplifies database interactions. URL routing, a URL dispatcher for handling URL routing and mapping to views. Templates, a template system for rendering dynamic HTML content. Authentication, built-in user authentication and authorization system. Admin interface, an auto-generated admin interface for managing site content. Security, built-in security features to protect against common web vulnerabilities. Scalability, support for building scalable applications. Question 2. Explain the MVC and MTV architecture in Django. Answer: Django follows the Model View Controller or MVC architectural pattern, which Django developers often refer to as Model View Template or MTV. Model represents the data structure, database schema, and business logic. It interacts with the database through the ORM. View handles the presentation logic and decides what data to display. It interacts with the model to fetch data. Template defines how the data is presented to the user. It is responsible for rendering HTML and can contain placeholders for dynamic content. In Django's terminology, the MTV pattern is similar to MVC. Model, it represents the data structure and is often referred to as the M in MTV. View, it handles the presentation logic and corresponds to the V in MTV. In Django, views are Python functions or classes responsible for processing requests and returning responses. Template, it defines how the data is presented to the user, similar to the T in MTV. Django's template system is used for this purpose. Question 3. What is Django ORM, and how does it work? Answer: Django ORM, Object Relational Mapping, is a built-in feature that allows developers to interact with databases using Python classes and objects instead of SQL queries. It maps database tables to Python classes and allows you to perform database operations in a more Pythonic way. Django ORM works as follows. You define your data models as Python classes, specifying fields and their types. Django automatically generates the database schema from these models. You can create, read, update, and delete records by interacting with Python objects, and Django translates these operations into SQL queries. The ORM provides a high-level API for complex queries and relationships, making it easier to work with databases. Question 4. How do you create a Django project and app? Answer: to create a Django project and app. For project, use the following command to create a new Django project. Django admin start project_name. Replace project_name with your desired project name. For app, inside your project directory, create a new app using this command. Python manage.py start app_name. Replace app_name with the name of your app. Add the newly created app to the installed_apps list in the project settings. Question 5. Explain Django's URL routing and how it works. Answer: Django's URL routing is handled by the URL dispatcher. It maps URLs to view functions or classes, allowing you to define how different URLs should be processed. Here's how it works. In the project's urls.py file, you define URL patterns using regular expressions and associate them with view functions or classes. When a user accesses a URL, Django's URL dispatcher matches the requested URL against the defined patterns. If a match is found, the associated view function or class is executed, and the response is returned to the user. For example, a simple URL pattern might look like this. In this example, when the URL/home/ is accessed, the home_page view function will be executed. Question 6. What are Django templates, and how do they work? Answer: Django templates are text files that define how dynamic HTML content should be generated and presented. They allow you to mix HTML markup with template tags and filters to include dynamic data. Django templates use double curly braces to enclose variables and template tags, such as %if%, %for%, and %include%. These tags and filters are processed by the Django template engine when rendering a template. For example, a simple template might look like this. In this template, title and user.username are placeholders for dynamic content, and %if% is used for conditional rendering. Question 7. Explain Django's authentication system and how to implement user authentication. Answer: Django provides a robust authentication system that makes it easy to implement user authentication in your web applications. To implement user authentication, add Django.contributionAuth to the installed_apps list in your project settings. Run Python manage.py migrate to create the necessary database tables for authentication. Use the built-in user model or create a custom user model by extending abstract user to add extra fields. Use the @login_required decorator to protect views that require authentication. Use the authenticate function to validate user credentials. Use the login function to log a user in. Use the logout function to log a user out. For example, here's how to create a login view. Question 8. What are Django models, and how do you define them? Answer: Django models are Python classes that define the structure of your database tables and the relationships between them. Each model class corresponds to a database table, and each class attribute represents a database field. To define a model, create a Python class that inherits from Django.db.models model. Define class attributes for each database field, specifying field types, for example, char field, integer field, and options, for example, max_length, null, unique. Use related fields like foreign key and many-to-many field to establish relationships between models. Add model methods to encapsulate business logic. For example, a simple model for a blog post might look like this. In this example, the post model defines fields for title, content, publication date, and an author relationship. Question 9. What is the Django admin interface, and how do you enable it? Answer: the Django admin interface is a built-in feature that provides an automatic and customizable admin panel for managing site content. To enable the admin interface, add Django.contributionAdmin to the installed_apps list in your project settings. Create superuser credentials using Python manage.py create superuser. Register models with the admin site using the admin site.register model name function. For example, to enable the admin interface for the post model mentioned earlier. Once enabled, you can access the admin interface at /admin/ and use it to manage your application's data. Question 10. Explain Django middleware and give examples of middleware classes. Answer: Django middleware is a way to process requests and responses globally before they reach the view or after they leave the view but before they reach the client. Middleware components are executed in the order they are defined in the middleware setting. Examples of middleware classes in Django. Authentication middleware adds the user attribute to the request object, representing the currently logged-in user. Session middleware manages user sessions and handles session data. CSRF view middleware protects against cross-site request forgery or CSRF attacks by adding CSRF tokens to forms. Common middleware provides various common HTTP-related features like URL rewriting, content type handling, and caching. Middleware for custom logging, security headers, or request response processing. You can create custom middleware classes to perform specific tasks in the request response cycle. Here's an example of custom middleware that adds a custom header to all responses. To use this middleware, add it to the middleware setting. Question 11. Explain Django's form handling and validation. Answer: Django provides a robust form handling and validation system to simplify the process of working with HTML forms. To create and handle forms. Define a form class that inherits from Django.forms form or a model form class that inherits from Django.forms.model form. Define form fields as class attributes, specifying field types and validation rules. Render the form in a template using the %form% template tag. In the view, handle form submissions by checking request.method and validating the form data using form.is_valid. If the form is valid, process the data; if not, display validation errors to the user. Here's a simple example of a login form. This is the example, how you can use this class in views.py. Question 12. What is Django's Object Relational Mapping or ORM, and why is it useful? Answer: Django's Object Relational Mapping or ORM is a powerful feature that allows you to interact with databases using Python objects and classes instead of writing raw SQL queries. It offers several benefits. Abstraction: you can work with databases at a higher level of abstraction, using Python objects to represent database records. Portability: the ORM makes your code more database agnostic, as it can work with various database backends, for example, PostgreSQL, MySQL, SQLite, without changing your code. Security: it helps prevent SQL injection attacks by automatically escaping parameters in queries. Productivity: writing SQL queries can be time-consuming, whereas the ORM simplifies database operations, reducing development time. Complex queries: Django ORM provides a high-level API for complex queries, making it easier to work with data models, relationships, and aggregations. Question 13. Explain the concept of Django migrations. Answer: Django migrations are a mechanism for managing changes to your database schema over time. They allow you to evolve your database schema as your application grows, without losing existing data. Here's how migrations work. When you define a model or make changes to existing models, for example, adding a new field or altering an existing field, Django generates migration files. Migration files are Python scripts that describe the changes to be made to the database schema. You apply migrations using the python manage.py migrate command, which executes the migrations in the order they were created. Django keeps track of which migrations have been applied in a special table in the database called Django_migrations. Migrations ensure that your database schema remains synchronized with your code, allowing you to make changes without manually updating the database. Question 14. What are Django signals, and how do they work? Answer: Django signals are a mechanism for allowing various parts of a Django application to communicate and react to events or actions without being tightly coupled. Signals are particularly useful for decoupling reusable apps and components. Here's how signals work. You define a signal using the Django.dispatch signal class. You can connect one or more functions or methods, signal handlers, to a signal using the signal.connect method. When the signal is sent, all connected signal handlers are executed. For example, you can use signals to perform certain actions when a user logs in. In this example, the log_user_login function is connected to the user_logged_in signal, so it will be executed whenever a user logs in. Question 15. How does Django handle static files and media files? Answer: Django provides a built-in mechanism for handling static files, for example, CSS, JavaScript, images, and media files, for example, user-uploaded files. Here's how it works. Static files. For static files, Django uses the static_URL setting to determine the URL prefix for serving static files. You configure the locations of your static files using the staticfiles_rs setting and collect them using Python manage.py collect static. Media files. For media files, Django uses the media_URL and media_root settings. Media_URL defines the URL prefix for serving media files, and media_root specifies the local file system path where media files are stored. You also need to configure your web server to serve media files in a production environment, as Django's development server is not suitable for serving media files efficiently. Question 16. How does Django handle database transactions? Answer: Django provides a high-level API for handling database transactions, making it easy to work with ACID-compliant transactions in your views. Transactions ensure that a series of database operations either all succeed or fail together. To work with transactions in Django, you can use the @transaction.atomic decorator on a view function to wrap the entire view function in a database transaction. If an exception is raised within the decorated function, the transaction is rolled back. Transactions help maintain data consistency and integrity, especially when multiple database operations need to be atomic. Question 17. What is Django's middleware and why is it important? Answer: Django middleware is a key component of Django's request-response processing pipeline. It allows you to process requests and responses globally, applying functionality to every request that passes through the middleware stack. Middleware is important for several reasons. Reusability. Middleware components are reusable and can be shared across different projects. Modularity. You can create custom middleware to add specific functionality to your application, such as authentication, logging, or security features. Extensibility. Middleware can be easily added or removed in the middleware setting, allowing you to change the behavior of your application without modifying existing code. Ordering. Middleware components are executed in the order they are defined in the middleware setting, allowing you to control the order of processing. Middleware can be used for tasks like authentication, request-response modification, logging, security, and more. Question 18. What is Django REST Framework, and why is it used with Django? Answer: Django REST Framework or DRF is a powerful and flexible toolkit for building web APIs in Django applications. It is used with Django to simplify the creation and management of RESTful APIs. DRF provides many features, including serialization, authentication, view classes, and more. Key reasons to use DRF with Django. Serialization. DRF provides serializers to convert complex data types, for example, Django models, into JSON, XML, or other content types suitable for the web. Authentication and authorization. DRF offers built-in support for various authentication methods and allows you to implement fine-grained authorization policies. View classes. DRF provides view classes that map to common API operations, making it easier to define API endpoints. Browsable API. DRF offers a browsable API, which simplifies API exploration and testing through a web interface. Throttling and pagination. DRF includes features for controlling API access rates and handling large result sets through pagination. Using DRF with Django allows developers to quickly build robust and feature-rich APIs for their applications. Question 19. How does Django handle caching, and why is it important for performance? Answer. Django provides built-in caching mechanisms to improve the performance of web applications by reducing the need to repeatedly generate or fetch data that doesn't change frequently. Caching is important for reducing database load. Caching can store the results of database queries, reducing the load on the database server and improving response times. Faster rendering. Cached templates and rendered content can be served quickly, reducing the time it takes to generate HTML responses. Efficient API responses. Caching can store API responses, allowing them to be served without recomputation. Django supports various caching backends, such as in-memory caching, database caching, and external caching systems like Memcached or Redis. You can configure caching settings in your project settings file, specify cache keys, and use decorators or functions to cache specific views or data. Question 20. What are the unique features of Django that make it a better framework? Answer. Django's superiority as a web framework stems from its unique features, including a batteries-included philosophy that offers a wide range of built-in components. Its ORM simplifies database interactions, while the automatic admin interface expedites content management. Django prioritizes security, mitigating common web vulnerabilities. It features a robust URL routing system, powerful template engine, and authentication mechanism. Middleware allows global request response processing, and the framework supports internationalization and localization. Django's scalability, supportive community, versatility for various web applications, and built-in optimizations for performance collectively establish it as a premier choice for efficient, secure, and rapid web development. Conclusion. These 20 Django interview questions and detailed answers cover a wide range of topics, including Django's architecture, ORM, URL routing, templates, authentication, models, forms, middleware, signals, static and media files handling, database transactions, caching, and the use of Django REST framework. Studying these questions and answers can help you prepare for a Django interview and showcase your knowledge of this popular web framework. That's all for this video. We will learn more about Django framework in upcoming videos. And, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future videos, please let us know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell for more content, so you don't miss any upcoming video. Until next time, keep exploring and keep coding. Thanks for watching, and happy coding.